Hi, welcome to the Itihasa channel. So we spoke about the stories of the visiting mendicant to the town of Ekachakra, of how he told the Pandavas and their mother Kunti about the swayamvara that would be conducted in the kingdom of Panchalas. The kingdom of Panchala was conducting a swayamvara for the most beautiful woman of Bharat Varsha, the daughter of Draupadi, Krishna Draupadi. And having heard this, the years perked up for the Pandava brothers and they couldn't sleep, and restlessness had taken over. And each of them dreamt about how they would spend their life with this gorgeous damsel, of having married her, and how they would win her over, win her heart over, and be in absolute bliss. And all through this, the cold, calculating Kunti realized that if one of them were to get Draupadi, it would create a discord in the family, and these boys needed to be united at all times to fight for their rightful place in the kingdom of Hastinapur. And so we shall begin about how they go on to the kingdom of Panchala. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Nagendra Namaha, Om Amme Narayana, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Anjanaya Namaha, Om Kartikaya Namaha, Swamiye Sharnamayapo, Om Guruve Namaha. So the next day, when the Pandavas got up, they were quite tired for having been awake most of the night listening to the story and being awake dreaming about being with Draupadi. And as they came back from their arms that day and sat round having dinner, they spoke to their mother and said, I think this town is quite small. We are quite bored having been enclosed in this little town. And Kunti agreed with a glint in her eye and a smile on her face and said, Yes, I too am very tired having to stay within these four walls all day long. And it's time we have a trip to another surrounding place, to some kingdom nearby, where the arms would be good and we can spend some more time hidden away from the prying eyes of the spies of Duryodhana. And then Kunti playfully asked him, Where do you think we should go next from here? And then Yudhishthira, with a blush on his face, had said, I think the kingdom of Panchala would be a good place to go. For I hear the people are generous and they generously donate alms to Brahmins, and it would be easy for us to spend our days there. And Kunti, with a glint in her eyes, said, Yes, I think your suggestion is a good suggestion. Let us take leave from this wonderful Brahmana who's hosted us for so long. This impeccable man who's been such a great person, who's always protected us, let us take leave from him and go on to the city of Panchala. And so they bid farewell to the great Brahmana who had taken them in into his humble abode. His wife and he were tearful when Kunti said they'll be leaving. He begged them to stay, for he knew that their life today was because of the great Bhimasena who attacked Bakasura and killed him. But eventually they parted, and as the Pandavas and Kunti started walking towards the town of Panchala, there emerged in front of them the great Vedavyasa almost like out of thin air. Vedavyasa always knew the right time that he needed to be at a particular place, and using his dhyana and his drishti and his divya drishti and his ability to transport through time was able to come to where he wanted. And there he stood in front of them as they made their way to Panchala. Immediately all of them prostrated at his feet. He blessed them and said, You are going towards your destiny and I think you know it. And they smiled and said, Yes. And he told them, Go forth to Panchala in the great kingdom of Kampilya. There's a swayamvara for the most beautiful woman, Draupadi, Krishna Draupadi, the daughter of the king Drupada. Vie for her hand. I'm sure one of you shall be able to get her hand in marriage, for she is destined to take the Kshatriya race to its logical conclusion. Yes, the logical conclusion of the Kshatriya race at the turn of the Dwapara Yuga would be to their deaths. A cold prophecy which everyone happened to ignore in the excitement of having to marry Draupadi. And so he said, go forth to Panchala, for you will finally attain the kingship of the great kingdom of Hastinapur, which rules over Bharatvarsha. And is destined that you shall be the emperor, O great Yudhishthira, and your able brothers will stand by you to support you in every means possible. And so they all prostrated themselves at his feet, and taking his blessings, they started to walk towards the city of Kampila, the capital of the kingdom of Panchalas, the kingdom of the great king Drupada. As they walked, they came across an enchanted forest. It started to be dusk at the time, and seeing this enchanted forest at the banks of the river Ganga, the five brothers and their mother decided to go in there, rest themselves at the banks of the Ganga in this enchanted forest, bathe in the waters of this beautiful river, Bhagirathi or Janvi, and then rest the night in this enchanted forest. And as they started walking through this enchanted forest, going towards the Ganga, Arjuna, who was in the lead with a large torch, a flaming torch, started to notice a movement on the side. And there on the side at the banks of the Ganga, there emerged a huge, tall, dark man with glowing neon skin, a Gandharva of extreme beauty. He stood up and said, halt, who goes there? Who is it among these humans who do not know that this third Sandhya is meant for the Gandharvas? Who is it that walks along this enchanted forest at the banks of the Bhagirathi? The forest that belongs to me, Angaraparna. The forest that has been named after my name. And Arjuna looked back and said, who are you? And this great Gandharva, this tall, dark man, who looked so slender and beautiful, who had beautiful wild flowers braided on his head, who had ornaments that glowed in the dark, ornaments that seemed to be of another realm. A beautiful, thin-waisted man with garments that seemed to shine in the night sky. A sword hanging down on his scabbard down his waist. He looked with a grim look towards the Pandavas and asked, how dare you walk into this forest? Are you not aware that the third Sandhya is meant for the Yakshas, the Rakshasas, and the Gandharvas? Are you not aware that only the daytime is meant for the human beings, and once the Sandhya ends and the third Sandhya begins through the night, only the Yakshas, the Gandharvas, and Yakshasas can roam and range around these beautiful forests? How dare you enter this forest where I am here with my queens, and there surrounding him on the side, Arjuna could make out some bright, faint, glowing bodies among the trees, and knew he was there with his wives. And Arjuna looked back at the Gandharva and said, it is said that it is not wrong for a man or any human to walk towards the Bhagirathi and take in her waters. For this Bhagirathi is the river that comes down from the Himavat mountains. And the great Ganga flows down from the Himavat mountains and is nobody's personal property. This great river flows down Bharatvarsha, purifying her where she goes. And nobody can deem that this river belongs to them. And so how can you, even though you be a Gandharva, say that I cannot come with my family down to this river? And the great Gandharva looked at Arjuna and said, this is the rule of the land, and you shall follow it. And now that you have come into this great land which belongs to me, know fully well that I am a Gandharva who is a favorite of the Lokpal Kubera. Kubera is the head of the Yakshas that as we had described when we had discussed about Shikandin and the Yakshas Thunakarna. And Angaraparna continued, I, Angaraparna, my name is derived from my chariot, which is called the flaming chariot, for my chariot is glowing like the flames. I am a favorite of the Lokpal Kubera, and having been his favorite, he has bestowed this land on me. He has bestowed the ownership of this land on me, and this part of the Ganga is owned by me. Nobody can come into this Ganga without permission, and if you do, for may you be a king who has armies, or may you be an individual. If you do, you shall perish at my hands. And Arjuna, in anger, looked back at the Gandharva and said, then let it be so. I challenge you to a duel, and if you can, let us see if you can conquer me and make me perish at your hands. For I shall ensure that your pride shall fall down before you, and I shall be the end of you, and today you shall be finished because of this pride that you carry for being a close friend of the Lokpala Kubera. And then Angaraparna got onto his flaming chariot, from which he got his name, and took a bowl which looked like crystal but which bent down to a full circle when pulled to full length, and let it twang a magical twang, a sound that ranged through that forest, a sound that brought fear into the hearts of ordinary mortals, at the same time had a musical twang to it that brought cheer to the birds and the animals there. And when he twanged this bow, his wives looked on in awe at him, and they came out of the bushes and the trees to look in awe at their wonderful, handsome husband on his flaming chariot. And then, taking up the bow, this great Gandharva let loose 7 sharp, Naracha like barbs, serpent like barbs at Arjuna. And Arjuna, being a skilled warrior but having not his weapon with him, with the flaming torch in front of him, swung it round in such fury and fervor and such speed that the 6 arrows that this Gandharva shot at Arjuna then laid harmless at Arjuna's feet. And then this Gandharva was shocked, for he did not expect this great warrior in front of him to calmly swat down the sharp arrows that he had sent towards him just by using the torch in his hand. And then the great Gandharva looked at Arjuna and said, beware, for I shall send in more arrows towards you and ensure that you and those brothers you walk with and the woman who is with you be killed. She looks like a older woman. She's probably your mother. Ask her to leave now, or she shall meet the same fate as you shall meet. And then Arjuna looked back at Angaraparna and said, you challenge me, a great Kshatriya? I shall show you my astras, and you shall meet these astras today, and these astras shall be the end of you. And the Gandharva looked back at Arjuna and said, you have no weapon to send the astras with. How do you plan to do it? And then Arjuna looked back at him and said, my Guru Dronacharya has taught me. He has taught me to send astras with common objects. I don't need a weapon for it. I don't need a bow and arrow for it. And so, taking the torch that lay burning in his hand, Arjuna spoke an ancient arcane mantra into the torch. And suddenly the torch started lighting up. It left his hand and hung in mid-air, and Angaraparna looked in awe and shock. And this torch started moving at a slow speed, hanging in mid-air towards Angaraparna. As it moved away from Arjuna, it started to brighten, and the flame started to become brighter and brighter. And in a short time, it formed a large conflagration of fireball, which then hit Angaraparna's chariot, scorching it and burning it to ashes in an instant. Angaraparna, having fallen off his chariot, seemed dazed by this large flame that engulfed his chariot. Within an instant, Arjuna had crossed over to where the Gandharva lay on the floor on the ground, caught him by the hair and dragged him towards his elder brother Yudhishthira. Dragging him by the hair, he brought him and shoved him and threw him at Yudhishthira's feet and said, now I shall kill this insolent Gandharva for having challenged us to a duel. And then, taking an axe from Bhimasena's hand, he raised it to bring it down on the Gandharva's neck. And as this Gandharva Angaraparna lay at Yudhishthira's feet being thrown down by Arjuna, A look of fear came into his eyes, for he knew his time was up and he didn't expect it to be so fast. And just as he was looking up in horror, and as Arjuna raised this axe to put it down on his neck, a woman came out from the woods and came screaming towards Yudhishthira and fell at his feet. She introduced herself and said, I am Kumbinasi, the wife of this great Gandharva. Forgive my husband. We are Gandharvas. We do not follow the rules of the Kshatriya, where a vanquished foe has to be killed. For us, it is no great shame to be quelled by you, a great Kshatriya like you. Spare his life. Spare his life. He was inflamed that we were interrupted when he was in the company of his wives. And it is that made him angry at you and attack you. We have no enmity with you. We will go our own way. Spare his life, O great Kshatriya. You may look like Brahmanas, but you fight like Kshatriyas, and I know from your body, the scars on your body, you are no Brahmanas. You are Kshatriyas, and we do not follow your rules. Spare the life of my husband. Then, looking at Arjuna, who was ready to bring down the axe on the neck of Angaraparna, Yudhishthira looked tenderly at Arjuna and said, a man whose life has to be spared because his wife has cried for it shouldn't be killed. Spare it. For his shame should be far more than the cost of his life. Spare his life, O Arjuna. Let him live. And as Yudhishthira started calling out to Arjuna as Arjuna, a smile came on Angaraparna's face. He got up immediately and asked him, so you are the Pandavas who have escaped from the burning house of lack. And in that instant, the smile on his face belied that Gandharvas do not bear eternal grudges like humans do. Gandharvas do not bear eternal hatred like humans do. They live for the moment. They enjoy the life of that moment. In an instant, he was up, and that insult that was meted on him by Arjuna was forgotten, and a smile came across his face. And he said, welcome to my forest. And playfully he said, I was called Angaraparna, the man with the flaming chariot. Today you've scorched it to ashes, and I may have to change my name from Angaraparna to a name that would denote the man of the scorched out, burnt out chariot. And they all shared a laugh at this. And then looking at Arjuna, he said, welcome to this forest. You should have informed me much ahead that you were the Pandavas, for we know of you and we've heard of you. And we were all very sad that you had perished in that burning forest. But today that I see you in front of me, and I see that you have given me my life, it is only befitting that I give you gifts in return for my life. I shall give you something what we Gandharvas possess. It is called Chakshushi, or divine vision. This is something that is not easily available for humans. And even if humans are to achieve it, you have to do intense tapasya by standing on one leg for 6 months without food and water. And only after doing this immense tapasya will you be granted this great boon of Chakshushi. This great boon was given initially by Swayambhu Manu himself. And from Swayambhu Manu, it was the first progenitor of the human race. From Swayambhu Manu, it was given to Somadeva, the moon god. And from him, it was transmitted to one of my gurus, who then gave it to me. And today I have the ability to gift it to anyone of my choosing. And in return for my life, I wish to gift it to you, O great Arjuna. With this, you will be able to commandeer large forces, illusions around you that may confuse your enemy. You will be able to bring out large illusions that can bring fear into the hearts of your enemy. Using the Chakshushi, you will be able to conjure up images that will bring up strength and courage in the hearts of your armies. This is a gift that will also allow you to look into other realms, and to get a vision into other realms and see what is happening, be it Devaloka or other places. This is how the Gandharvas are able to see into time across time and see at various things past, present, and future. Today I shall give you the Chakshushi in return for sparing my life. And having said this, he made Arjuna stand in front of him. He then brought his hand to the side of Arjuna's head, and with his fingers he started rubbing the temples of Arjuna to the side of his head. And as Arjuna stood in front of Angaraparna with his eyes closed, and as the Gandharva Angaraparna took his fingers and started rubbing the side of Arjuna's head, in Arjuna's mind, various creatures started forming. Creatures that would create horror and terror in a normal man's mind. And just as these creatures started forming in the mind's eye of Arjuna, they disappeared just as instantly. And a fragrant scent started enveloping the air around Arjuna, which only he could feel. And then beautiful Apsaras started dancing in front of his eyes, and they too disappeared in an instant. And then in an instant he had the vision of the Devaloka and other realms, which humans normally cannot pass by, which humans cannot approach, which humans cannot see. And in those moments that followed, as the great Gandharva started rubbing the side of Arjuna's head, various visions came into Arjuna's mind's eye and disappeared in an instant. And then he opened his eyes, having been given the Chakshushi. And then Angaraparna looked at Arjuna and said, "Wait, this is not the only gift I'm giving you. Let me give you more. For today you have given me my life back, and there is no way I can fulfill this gratitude. Let me gift you the horses of Gandharva Loka. It is said that when these horses run, their hooves barely touch the ground. They're lean and sturdy, but they never tire, they never get tired. I shall give each of your brothers 100 of these horses. These magnificent steeds are nothing like anyone in Bhuloka has ever seen. I shall gift these to you." And then Arjuna looked back at the Gandharva and said, "You have given me the Chakshushi, which is a worthy gift for the gift of your life. If you give me more gifts, it will make me feel inferior. It will only be fair that I give you some gift in return. Please tell me what is it that I can gift to you." And then the Gandharva said, "Teach me the Agneastra, this wonderful astra that you used to burn down my chariot. My chariot was no mean chariot, and no human could burn it down, much less cause even a mild damage. Teach me the Agneastra." And with a tender smile, Arjuna looked at Angaraparna and said, "Yes, I will teach you the Agneastra. It was given by the great Brihaspati, the guru of the Devas, the guru of Indra Sakra himself. He taught it to his son Bharadwaja, the great Saptarishi. Bharadwaja in turn taught it to his disciple Agnivesha, who then on his instructions taught it to my guru Dronacharya, who then taught it to me. This great Agnyastra with this great lineage, I teach you henceforth." And then making him sit down in front of him facing east, Arjuna had whispered the mantra of the Agnyastra to the great Gandharva Angarapara. And then the great Gandharva said, "Take my steeds with you." And Arjuna said, "We shall take it at a time in the future when we need it. Keep it with you right now." And Angaraparna said, "Think of me when you need it, and these steeds shall be there next to you to do your bidding." And then he looked at Arjuna and said, "Oh Tapatya, do you know why I attacked you when you walked through this beautiful enchanted forest? It was because you walk here without a wife and without a guru in front of you. For every man who desires to be a king, for every man who desires to be an emperor, for every kshatriya who desires greatness, the guru will perform great yajnas that will give great power to this kshatriya and the king. Yajnas that will give great gifts of the devas to these kings, ensuring that they have immense power. And so, my dear Tapatya, it is necessary that you and Yudhishthira go forth and search for a great guru who shall guide you through all your travails. You have a great war coming ahead of you, where you shall have to fight against your cousins who have usurped, who have sent you out of their land. And in this great battle, you will need the guidance of your guru. And oh, great Thapati, it is necessary for you to ensure that you have a bride. Go forth and find a bride. I'm assuming you're going towards the kingdom of Panchala. Yes, there's a Swayamvara going on there, and you shall have your bride there. And then Arjuna looked at the Gandharva and asked, why is it that there are places in this great Bharat Varsha which are out of bound for human beings? Why is it that we have to fear when we walk through these great plains? Fear that we might be killed by yakshas and rakshasas and Gandharvas like you. And Angaraparna looked at him and said, though you are right in saying that this great Bhagirathi which flows down from the great Himalayas is free for everyone, it should be noted that there are times in the day when the yakshas and Gandharvas and rakshasas reign supreme, for when it is sundown and the sun is no longer up in the sky, our powers are magnified hundredfold and we are able to range through the earth. And in this time when we are powerful, if we come across humans and come across normal people, it's quite possible that you might perish in our hands, at our hands. And so it is determined that at these particular times in the third Sandhya, these places are out of bounds for human beings. And Arjuna said, let it be in the future, and I demand this as a gift from you, that humans can roam freely along these forests, not tormented by the yakshas and Gandharvas. And Angaraparna smiled at Arjuna and said, so be it, tathastu. And then Arjuna looked at him and said, you've always called me Thapatya. You know I'm a Pandava. You know I belong to the Kuru clan. I'm from the Kuru dynasty. I'm a Kaunteya. You know so much about me. Yet why is it that you call me Thapatya? What is the significance of this? And thenceforth, the great Gandharva Angaraparna sat and spoke to Kunti and the Pandavas stories of the past, wondrous stories, regaled them with great stories about their ancestors, regaled them with great stories about people of the past who they were connected to. And so the Mahabharata is a collection of stories, wondrous stories of ancient times, of times gone by, 10,000 years in the past, 20,000 years in the past. And that day, in that enchanted forest called Angaraparna, the great Gandharva Angaraparna, who was a close friend of the Lokpala Kubera, the king of the Yakshas, the leader of the Yakshas, the god of the Yakshas, he sat and told the Pandavas wondrous stories of the past. In the next couple of episodes, I shall describe these stories, great stories, stories which had different versions in the Mahabharata itself. But this is a version of Angaraparna. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Nagendra Namaha, Om Ambe Narayana, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Anjaneyaya Namaha, Om Kartikaya Namaha, Swami Sharanamayapo, Om Gurve Namaha.